welcome to the latest episode of Empire Sports Talk. I am your host, Roman Gennaro, back for another episode of Season 5. This has been a crazy couple of weeks in sports. Baseball's about to start back up. NFL free agency is going like wildfire, and the NBA season is winding down and giving us plenty of excitement. Now, let's jump right in. Bruce Arians announced he was stepping down as the Tampa Bay Bucks head coach 2 years after leading Tampa to a Super Bowl. The timing of this is a little concerning because it's already been a wild offseason for Tampa Bay, who saw Tom Brady retire and about 6 weeks later say, nah, never mind, unretire. And just a week or less after that, Bruce Arians says, I'm done. Now, he's not retiring because apparently he's moving on to a front office job, so good for him. But I don't know why he would wait to do that in the busiest part of the non-playing calendar for NFL teams when you're trying to sign players, when you're trying to convince them to join your roster for the upcoming season. Part of what convinces people to come is who's the coach. And Bruce Arians was like, not me. Apparently, the succession plan was in place for a while in that Todd Bowles was going to take over. But why would that not be communicated at the end of the previous season? Or why now is this happening when that team has obviously been dealing with enough the last few weeks with Tom, as some would say, pulling a Brett Favre and retiring and then unretiring. So I don't really understand what that was about. We've seen that kind of thing before. Not somebody like resigning, like that. But we've seen Billy Donovan accepted the Magic job and then 24 hours later said no thanks. But it's just it's the timing. It's you're in this heavy free agency period where all these big names are switching sides and you're trying to pull some of them to you. You're trying to be like, "Hey, come to us." When the largest part of one of the largest parts of your pitch walks out the door. Maybe this was a move in regards to the new rule about minority coaches. But that doesn't make sense either because the rule that all teams must have a minority coach on their staff, that the Bucks were already covered. They had Byron Leftwich, they had Todd Bowles. I think they had a female assistant. At least they did last year, I think. If I'm wrong about that, please let me know. But I think the Bucks were one of the teams that had a female assistant coach. So that can't be it because they were already covered. If you're going to look at it by like hitting that check mark of do we have that minority staff member, which they did. So that doesn't make any sense either. Now, I think Todd Bowles is a really good coach. I remember when Dan Quinn got fired from Atlanta. Todd Bowles was on the list for that job, and that's who I wanted. That's who I wanted as the new head coach, and it didn't happen. No, it might have been when Mike Smith was fired, not when Dan Quinn was fired, because Todd Bowles went on to coach the Jets, so it may have been when Mike Smith was fired. Todd Bowles was the guy that I wanted. So I think he'll be a great coach. Now, you could say, oh, he didn't have a good record with the Jets. But look at that Jets team. No one was going to have a good record with the Jets. Bill Belichick wouldn't have had a good record with that team. Throw that out the window. That doesn't matter. So I think Todd Bowles is going to do a good job. My my concern about this is that the timing is so strange. Like I said, that to happen mid like I wouldn't even consider this off season for the NFL because the free agency period, like that's kind of when your new season starts. You could argue that's not the case, but like when you're gearing up for the next season, that's when your season starts. So why would he not make this decision earlier? Why would he not do it right after the season? And I don't understand. That's his choice. Whatever. But we'll see. We'll see how that works out for the Bucks. These next couple things are. I should have titled this episode "Hot Button" because these next couple issues are hot button issues for me. KD recently said that he thinks that his jersey should be retired by Oklahoma City and Golden State, saying, and I quote, "It would be bad for basketball if it didn't happen." Okay. The reason why that's a hot button issue for me, it doesn't have anything to do with Keven Durant. I think sports and basketball specifically, because I've seen it as more of a thing with them recently, is that they're retiring jersey numbers too easily. Uh, that that might get me in some trouble. I think they're retiring numbers too easily. Like for example, the one that made no sense to me um, at all was when the Heat retired Chris Bosh's jersey. Um, no disrespect to Chris Bosh. He's a good player. He had some really good years with both with the Heat and with Toronto. But winning a championship is not winning a championship alone is not a good enough reason to get your jersey retired. Um, to get your jersey retired, you have to have be endearing to the franchise. You have to have accomplishments that can sometimes include a title, yes. And more importantly to me, you have to have longevity. You have to have consistency. Um, and that's kind of where the number retirement thing is kind of iffy to me. I've heard that the Heat might retire LeBron's jersey. I've even heard the Lakers might retire LeBron's jersey when he's done, and that would be absurd to me. Um, Now you could argue LeBron had his best years in Miami. So with him, I would care a little less than Chris Bosh. But Chris Bosh was the third best, sometimes not even that, player on a you can call it a dynasty. He was the third best player on paper. He would often get outplayed. There were playoff games that he didn't show up. And after LeBron left back to Cleveland, Bosh was still on the team and didn't really do anything. Um, Now you can come at me for that all you want. That's just an example. That's my example. I think the NBA and sports is a little too liberal with the number retiring. Um, so the first problem I have with KD here is you don't get to decide if your jersey is retired. You don't get to do that. And when you do that, because Dwight Howard basically said the same thing when he left the Magic. He said, "I think my number should be retired because somebody was given the number 12 in Orlando, and he's like, I think my number should be retired." The second you do that, at least if I was a GM, the second you say my number should be retired on the team, it's not going to be retired because that's not something you say. It's not. It's not. It's not very classy. It's not very. It's uncouth to say because if a player is on a team and has given years to the team and has accomplished things with the team, if their number is going to be retired, the team's already thinking about it. after that person's maybe even while that person is still playing, the team is already thinking about it. So for you to come in and be like, "Oh, my number should be retired," first of all, that's an arrogant thing to say about yourself. If Dwayne Wade or his teammates in Orlando, Hito Turkoglu, Jameer Nelson, had said, or any other players had said of Dwight Howard, Dwight's number 12 should be retired, and he'd be like, "Yeah, that'd be cool." That's a whole other thing. But nobody was talking about it. The only person that said anything was Dwight Howard about himself. And first of all, and this is my other issue with it, aside from being an arrogant statement to say my number should be retired, it's bad for basketball if it's not. The biggest issue there, and this meets with Dwight Howard as well, is Dwight Howard's exit from Orlando was less than spectacular, was less than well received. He was no longer, he had vilified himself, let's say, to Orlando. And so there's no chance that they were going to retire his number because of the way he left. Now, I don't think Keven Durant necessarily burned any bridges. First of all, he said Oklahoma City and Golden State. Let's throw Golden State out right now. I'll get to that in a second. But in Oklahoma City, maybe he's right because that was a new franchise and he led them to a finals. And he's one of the best players in the world. So he's probably right about Oklahoma City retiring his jersey. But you don't say it. And let's take a look at how his tenure in Oklahoma City finished. He wasn't getting along with Russell Westbrook. The feud had become public. He has been known to use burner accounts to not only praise himself but to throw shade at others. And he had kind of, I don't want to talk about anybody's personality, but he had kind of changed from when he came into the league. He was the nice guy. He was the guy, like this shining moral example. But then, when the feud with Russell Westbrook started, when he left for Golden State, that changed. And now he's not the most liked player in the league. He's not the most disliked, but he's not the most liked player in the league. But aside from all that, he started a feud with Russell Westbrook. Or maybe he didn't start it, but Russell Westbrook has been known to not be the easiest person to play with. You can ask James Harden, you can ask LeBron James, you can ask his teammates. So I get that. But the rumor was that he went into the GM's office and said, "It's him or me. It's Russell or it's me." And as we saw by him going to Golden State, Oklahoma City made their choice. And they chose Russell Westbrook. A choice I believe they regretted, but they made a choice, and it wasn't Keven Durant. So why would Keven Durant think that same group would be like, you know what? We should definitely retire the jersey of the guy that gave us an ultimatum. But then Golden State, listen, he was there for what, 3 years? Won a championship on very arguably, the best team of all time. Again, I still think the 72-10 Bulls are better than the 73-9 Warriors, just because it's a different style of basketball. The Bulls were more physical. I think they would bully. I think they would bully the Warriors and win the game. Nobody can match up. Nobody can match up with Steph shooting. Nobody can match up with Michael. So we'll never know. But my opinion is that the best team in basketball history is still the 72-10 Chicago Bulls. That aside, Keven was there. They won a championship. All well and good. He was there for a short period of time, though. And as I said earlier, one of my criteria for getting your number retired is longevity. But one of the other biggest criteria to me and I think this is why it's okay that it's weird, but it's okay that Miami retired Michael's number 23, even though he never played from Miami. One of the things to me, and you could say the same thing about the MLB retiring 42 for Jackie Robinson. The other criteria, other than longevity and accomplishments, is that you have to have made a difference for the franchise. You have to be a difference maker for the franchise. And I believe I believe Keven Durant did all of those things for Oklahoma City. I am not saying that he is wrong about Oklahoma City, but he is wrong about Golden State. Keven played for 3 years. They won 2 championships, I think. But the Golden State Warriors had won before Keven. And they're shaping up to make a deep playoff run after Keven. They are in a better conference position this year than Keven, with largely the same group of guys. And it's been the same group of guys for the most part the entire time. Steph, Clay, Draymond. And the same nucleus the entire time of this impressive run by the Warriors. The three guys I just mentioned absolutely should have their numbers retired by Golden State because they've done the things that I said: longevity, accomplishments, difference making. Keven might have won a championship with Golden State. But did he really make a difference? They were the best team before him. They won all those games without him. They built a dynasty or had laid the groundwork for a dynasty without him. He was just chasing the ring. Last I checked, you retire numbers for the greatest people to put on your uniform, which could be an argument for that because Keven is one of the greatest to play. But you retire it for people who make a difference for your franchise. And I don't think Keven did that. They were already good without him. And they're proving this year they're still good without him. So I don't think a 3-year run qualifies you for a retired number. I'm sorry, that's just wrong. Now, Oklahoma City, absolutely. Put that number up there. Put it up there. But not Golden State. Don't be talking about retiring it in Golden State. You don't know what you're talking about. I don't Keven could not be more wrong. But aside from that, aside from him being wrong about Golden State, you don't demand it of yourself. You don't say, my number should be retired. It's bad for basketball. That it's really hard to have a more arrogant statement than that. They, and I read the comments. I totally agree. I totally agree. I do too. I think not with Golden State, but I think his number should be retired in Oklahoma City. It was a brand new franchise. They had several winning seasons. He put up numbers. He won MVPs. They got to a finals. And he was there for what, 7 years? I agree. His number should be in the rafters in Oklahoma City. Not so much Golden State. What I don't agree with is him being the one to say it. If Stephen A. Smith had said it, if Colin Cowherd had said it, if Mike Greenberg had said it, if another player had said it, if LeBron had said it, if Giannis had said it, fine. And that goes back to Dwight Howard. If someone else says it and you're like, yeah, that'd be cool, I have no problem. But for you to be the one, out of nowhere, to say, my number should be retired for that team, does it get more arrogant than that? So, yes to Oklahoma City, no to Golden State, and absolutely not to Keven talking about it himself. Now we're going to stay with the NBA here real quick for the last thing. I have never been a fan for the 3 years that it's been going on, of the NBA play-in tournament, because when all is said and done, the 10 teams that are involved either in the playoffs or the play-in tournament, the 10 teams from each conference, that's 20 teams. That's more than half of the league. And all sports are expanding their playoffs, and I'm not the biggest fan of it because to me, the playoffs are for the best of the best that year. The best of the best, not the best two-thirds. I think the NFL had it right. And the MLB had it right, where you win your division, you're in, and then there's a couple of wild card spots. I think that's the way to go. Now, both leagues have recently expanded, and I'm not the biggest fan. MLB used to have one wild card per league, and now they have, I think they're going to three, which I already hate the one game wild card game because baseball is not a sport that should be decided by one game because anything can happen. I think the NFL added another wild card spot. I don't care as much about that because they still have the fewest number of playoff teams, I think. The NBA already had 16, which to me was too many. Um, but now they have 20, and that's more than half the league, and that's too dang many. We live in a participation trophy generation where everybody should get a chance, everybody should do this, blah 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 blah, and everybody gets a trophy for showing up, and we've lost the side of the fact that this is the highest level of competition. Professional sports is the highest level of competition, and the playoffs are reserved for the best of the best. So to have a total of 20 playoff teams, thanks to the addition of a tournament, is too many, way too many. And I think that needs to change. But the best argument for it needing to change is happening this year right in front of our eyes. All season long, the biggest storyline in the NBA has been the dysfunction of the Los Angeles Lakers, has been the benching of Russell Westbrook, the injuries to LeBron and Anthony Davis, and the frustrated press conferences where they're like, I don't know why we're not winning. I don't know why it's not working. All we've talked about all year is how bad this season has been for the Lakers. That has been the prevailing topic of conversation from analysts and fans all year. What is wrong with the Lakers? Why are the Lakers playing so bad? Why is this experiment of these older veterans such a disaster? And yet, they're currently in 11th, which is only one spot out of the playoffs with this new setup. So what does that say about your format? What does that say about your league? If the overwhelming topic of conversation for the whole year is how bad a certain team is and how poorly an experiment has gone, and yet they're still fighting for a playoff spot. Those are two contradictory ideas, and the NBA just has it so wrong with the play-in tournament. They should start by going back to the 8 teams per conference, but then they should really look at changing it more. Because in the NFL, in the NBA, or sorry, in the NFL and the MLB, there is a premium and an importance in winning your division, because that puts you in the playoffs. That keeps you from having to play possibly sometimes in the wild card series. All these things, like the primary goal of the season until the postseason is win your division, win and you're in, win your division and you're in. In the NBA, I can't even tell you what teams are in what division. I can't even name the divisions because nobody cares. There is no importance placed on winning your division, on division titles in the NBA. There needs to be less. I think fewer playoff teams will be better for the sport because you'll see division rivals battling it out because they know the importance of that division title. Right now, the division title is just, it's nothing. It's not anything. You put that banner up there that says Atlantic Division Champion, and you have guys be like, oh, I didn't even know we did that. But that makes sense, I guess. We were third in the East. Like, there needs to be an importance on those division titles. And right now, with the current setup of the NBA playoffs, and even before the play-in tournament, the current setup of those playoffs, it doesn't matter. It's like top 8 teams get in. Top 8 teams get in. Period. So it didn't matter if you came in first in your division or third in your division. If another division was worse, like whatever. And there's always that debate in baseball and and football as well. Like a few years ago in baseball, I think the Cubs, Cardinals, and Pirates all had 97 or more wins, and the Cardinals and Pirates was it the Cubs and Pirates had to play each other in a one-game wild card, and people were like, "Oh, what the heck?" But that's why that was so important, because those three teams were in the same division, so they knew the importance of fighting for that division title, because the winner was not going to have to play in that wild card game, even though the wild card participants had some better records than some of the division winners. That's just the way it shook out. But that is the prime example of why you need to have a playoff format where division titles matter. All that to say is that the Lakers are proving this year why the play-in shouldn't exist, because all we've talked about this year is how negative it's been, or how it hasn't worked out at all, and yet they're fighting for a playoff spot. So I hope the NBA kind of changes their ways pretty soon, but we'll see. That's all I got for you. This has been Empire Sports Talk with Roman Gennaro. Another episode. Tune in next week, and this is Roman Gennaro signing off. See y'all later.